Good evening. Hi, I'm Jay Barth. I'm the director of the Clinton Presidential Library and Museum, and we're thrilled that you are here tonight. And on behalf of the Clinton Foundation, the Clinton School of Public Service at the University of Arkansas, and the Clinton Library, we welcome you to our latest installment of our Clinton Presidential Center Presents series. All three of our institutions with independent but interlocking missions that reside together here on the campus of the Clinton Presidential Center unite in carrying out the CPCP series, as we call it. President Clinton, as we all know, built his presidential center to serve as a venue to inspire, to convene, and to connect people from all walks of life. And this program seeks to generate dialogue and addresses some of the most pressing challenges facing our community, nation, and the world. Across the last 8 months, we're thrilled that many of these CPCP events have related to the Women's Voices, Women's Votes, Women's Rights exhibit. And I hope that all of y'all have had a chance to see that wonderful exhibit. And if you haven't, we've only got a few more days. So we are about to close up shop, sadly, at the end of the month. A number of the programs offered across the last 8 months, including tonight's, have been sponsored in part by the National Archives Foundation. One of the goals of this programming is to highlight the role of women leaders in the Clinton administration. And tonight's program with Jamie Gorelick is one such vital woman leader whom we will hear from tonight. In the Clinton administration, Jamie first served as general counsel at the Department of Defense. She then became one of the longest-serving deputy attorneys general of the United States, the second highest position in the Department of Justice. Of course, at the Department of Justice, her boss was the first woman Attorney General of the United States, Janet Reno. Her time at Justice included the worst act of homegrown terrorism in the nation's history, the bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in downtown Oklahoma City that resulted in the deaths of 168 individuals, and Jamie played a crucial role in the legal case that followed. Part of the conversation tonight will center on the Oklahoma City events and its meaning. And as evidence of the respect that the people of Oklahoma City have come to have for Jamie, 8 folks with ties to the Oklahoma City National Memorial Museum are here tonight, led by Carrie Watkins, the president and CEO of the organization and a great friend of mine over the last year. The chair of the board, John Kennedy, its vice chair, Dr. Susan Chambers, and its past chair. And let's ask them to stand up and let's thank them for coming over tonight. Fantastic. Jamie Gorelick is one of Washington's best-known lawyers, routinely listed as one of the best lawyers in America and as one of the 30 greatest Washington lawyers in the last 30 years by National Law Journal. In addition to her work in the Clinton administration, Jamie was assistant to the secretary and counselor to the deputy secretary of energy during the Carter administration. She is on the boards of Amazon and VeriSign, and previously served on the boards of United Technologies, now Raytheon, and Schlumberger. She is currently a member of the Homeland Security Advisory Council, and she was a member of the Department of Defense Policy Board and the 9/11 Commission. Our moderator in this conversation with Jamie this evening is my colleague and pal and executive director of the Clinton Foundation, Stephanie Streett. Stephanie served all 8 years in the Clinton administration, finishing her tenure as assistant to the president and director of scheduling. Before the White House, Stephanie worked on Capitol Hill as a staff member of the United States Senate Committee on the Budget. I welcome Jamie and Stephanie to the stage.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. We have a very exciting and interesting conversation. I'm so thrilled to welcome my former colleague, Jamie Gorelick, here to Little Rock, or back to Little Rock. It's been a while, and I understand you got to have a wonderful tour down memory lane today of the museum.
I strolled down memory lane for sure.
For sure. Well, we have a lot to cover here tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and get started unless you would like to start by saying anything.
Only that the library is wonderful. It is really a treasure, and I was really honored to have a wonderful tour today and to remember everything that happened during the Clinton administration and before and after. It's great. So thank you for having me here, and that's all I want to say.
Well, I would like to start. I'm going to tell you some of the words that people I know have used to describe you. Best, legend, greatest. You don't get the kinds of accolades from being just kind of a flash in the pan. Can you talk a little bit about the trajectory of your career? Obviously, people think very highly of your service.
Thank you for that. My career has been nonlinear. And serendipitous and a lot of fun. I've made changes when I've wanted to, and sometimes when they just came upon me. I grew up in a family in which all my grandparents and my dad were born outside this country. And it was inculcated in me very early that I needed to give back, that I needed to help my country in any way I could. And as a Jew, it is also part of my religion and culture to do justice. I didn't know how I was going to do any of that. And I almost stumbled into law school. But when I got out, I realized how much one could do with legal training, and I've tried to get the very best out of it.
You and I both had the honor of serving during President Clinton's administration, obviously, as Jay mentioned, as President Clinton's general counsel at the Department of Defense, and then to the Department of Justice as the number 2, the deputy AG. From your bird's eye view, what policy decisions did the president and his administration make that opened opportunities to women or helped women and families? And I know the secretary played quite a bit of a big role in those efforts as well.
So the Defense Department is the biggest everything. It's the biggest healthcare system, the biggest education system. It's the biggest everything. So whatever problems there are in our society, you see them there. Whether it is the issue of opening positions to women, the issue of education, pretty much everything. And so the very first set of positions that were open to women in combat that was done in the early days of the Clinton administration. And I was very much part of that, helped run that effort. And the interesting thing about it was that the fiercest advocates for opening up positions to women were the crusty 3- and 4-star generals with daughters in the military.
That's fascinating.
They knew what their kids could do. And they knew that the system as currently structured was rigged against them. And they didn't want to see those barriers. And that was fascinating to me, fascinating to me. There were so many things that the administration did that were helpful to women, not the least of which was putting women in positions of power, because those positions begat other positions later on in folks' career. And I can give lots of examples of that. For example, in the Justice Department, there was a woman named Lisa Monaco who came off of Capitol Hill as a very, very young law graduate and went to work as a young newbie counsel to Janet Reno. And after that, she did one thing or another, getting increasing responsibility. And today she's the Deputy Attorney General, the job I had. And she would not have had that had she not had the very first opportunity that the Clinton administration gave her, because that job was followed by jobs in the Obama administration and now the Biden administration. That happened to me too.
You mentioned Janet Reno. What an icon. What an incredible public servant. Can you talk a little bit about her as a person and the opportunity you had to work alongside her?
Before I talk about her, I want to talk about the president, because I got to know Janet Reno when I was asked to help get her confirmed. I was headed to the Defense Department, so I had no conflict of interest in trying to get the Attorney General confirmed. And the Bernie Nussbaum, who was White House counsel, asked me to help get Zoe Baird confirmed. And that didn't work out. I guess they thought I did a good enough job because they asked me to help Janet get confirmed. And so here I was, thrown into what was a really intimate relationship with somebody whom I didn't know. And I could not have been more different from her. She was a local prosecutor in Florida. I was this fixture of Washington in her view. But we formed a really fast friendship. And I went over to the Defense Department as general counsel. She was confirmed resoundingly to become Attorney General of the United States. We stayed in touch. We talked to each other. And about 9 months into her tenure, I called her and I said, you know, there are lots of rumors that the department is not running well. And she said, stay tuned. And a week later, she and her then deputy, Phil Hyman, announced that he was going to be leaving. It was very amicable and nice. They did a press conference together. A member of the press asked Phil, is there anything you would have done differently? He said, yes, I would have rented. But anyway, right after that, she called me and she said, would you come and be my deputy? I said, well, A, I like my job very much. I love the Defense Department. And B, it was hard enough to have a woman heading this department. What makes you think the president is going to have 2 women at the top of that department? And she said, let's try. So I called Bernie Nussbaum, the White House counsel still at the time, and I said, look, Janet has this idea, but I don't want to be hung out there if you're not going to do it. And I think you're not going to do it, so just tell me you're not going to do it. And about 2 days later, he called and said, we're doing it. And that was a real credit to the president. I mean, he thought that Janet should have the deputy she wanted. I did have some skills that she didn't have. We were actually quite complementary. She had many skills I didn't have. But I was actually astounded by this. I did not think that that could happen. And when I was sworn in, Ruth Ginsburg swore me in.
That's pretty special.
And she said in her remarks, I would never have believed that I would be standing here as a justice of the Supreme Court, swearing in a woman to work for another woman as head of this department. And it was really moving. Now, you did ask me a question. And the question was...
That was perfect, though. That'll be
like-
segueing great into my next question. But I was
something-
just about Janet Reno, what it was like to work alongside her.
So Janet Reno was literally and figuratively larger than life. She had a storied career as a local prosecutor in Miami. And she was a character born of characters. Her mother wrestled alligators and built their house on the Everglades with her bare hands. And Janet was a tough prosecutor, but empathetic, and had real, dirt under her fingernails. She knew local law enforcement. She was unbelievably empathetic and unbelievably hardworking. But the main thing that you need to know about Janet Reno is that she led with her values more than anyone I have ever seen. So what do I mean when I say that? When you work in government, Stephanie knows this, you can't hire people or fire people hardly. You certainly can't give them a bonus. You don't have any of the tools that exist in business. So you have to have people believe in what you're doing. And people believed in what she was doing. And the people of the Department of Justice would have followed her up any hill. And there were some hills they had to follow her up.
There sure were. Well, talking about women's leadership, our current temporary exhibit that I hope you got to see today.
I did.
The Women's Voices, Women's Votes, Women's Rights. First of all, for those of you who haven't seen it, you literally have just a few more days. It closes at the end of April. So if you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend you try to come over the next few days. It is what I think one of the most extraordinary temporary exhibitions that we've ever had here. But it has been a really powerful backdrop for us to have programs like we are having here tonight. And every woman that is highlighted in the exhibition is an inspiration. So with that, I would like to know if there's a woman or women who inspired you to pursue your career and dedicate a majority of your career to public service.
Well, as I mentioned, my family basically said, this country has given us refuge and given us opportunity, and you have to be part of the fabric of the country in living up to its best values. My mother was an artist and a wonderfully empathetic person, strong progressive values, I would say. She was also a child of the Depression. She was shifted from family member to family member when her parents got thrown out of their apartments during the Depression, and therefore was unbelievably anxious. Everything made her anxious. Like if you were watching a basketball game with her and someone was shooting foul shots, she would literally wring her hands over whether someone was going to make the foul shot, even if she didn't know the team or the player. Everything made her anxious. So I grew up with what I would call an anxiety bath. There was so much anxiety free floating in the air that it takes a lot to make me anxious. And so that's how I've found my niche in life. I'm calm when other people are anxious. It's not that I don't see the source of anxiety, I just don't absorb it, and it doesn't change me. And it's a weird, my kids would call it a superpower. It's a weird character trait, but it has served me very well.
Wonderful. Let's again focus on the Clinton administration. We spoke about Janet Reno. Obviously, Secretary Clinton is someone that has inspired us all and we've all looked up to. Are there any other women in the Clinton administration that you particularly admire? And if so, why?
Well, I don't want to pass over Hillary quite so fast.
Okay, well, that was going to be an easy one. So you could, go ahead with Hillary.
No. In the bell curve of resilience, she is in the tail of the bell curve. She is the most resilient, determined person I know. Now, people think that that means that she doesn't hurt when she falls down. I don't think that's true. She just gets back up. And that is a lesson that I observed and absorbed, and that my kids have too. It is. And I believe that the most important quality for success in life is resilience. And we had Exhibit A in Hillary in the Clinton administration, and we have her still today.
And talk a little bit about that. Like, how do you find resilience? I mean, where does that come from, especially in times that are just so tough? And I want to hear you talk a little bit about some of those tough times, like Oklahoma City, like serving on the 9/11 Commission. Talk about how you specifically find resilience, and then I'd like to segue into some of those really challenging times during your service during the Clinton administration.
Well, you need to be motivated by your values and by whatever has set you on the course that you've been set upon in your life. And so that helps. But I do think it comes down to what kinds of parents you had. I think most successful women had